Alex Golesh has a quote on tampering, and naturally everybody thinks he's talking about Ole Miss.
Oh my goodness, we're going to do this already?
Yeah, we're...
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into this special crossover edition of Locked On Auburn and Locked On Ole Miss. I'm Zach Blackerby, host of Locked On Auburn. He's Stephen Willis, host of Locked On Ole Miss. Auburn and Ole Miss did exchange some players in the portal window. We'll discuss that towards the end of the show, as well as just the overall feud that's happening throughout college football when it comes to players and coaches and tampering and all of that. But Alex Golesh down in Mobile earlier in the week for the Senior Bowl, Stephen, asked about his thoughts on tampering. I'll read the quote here because, man, did Ole Miss make it about them? Goodness gracious. So this is a quote from Alex Golesh. Is it right to call a kid that's on somebody else's roster to go get him? It's not. I think in a lot of ways, what goes around comes around. I'm a strong believer in the football gods will find you at some point. And you Ole Miss folks thinks that he's talking about you guys.
Well, everybody else is, right? I mean, what's going on? Surely, TJ Hedrick transferred from Ole Miss to Auburn. He went into the portal on the 15. He committed to Auburn on the 15. That was a quick decision, or there was some pre-portaling tampering there. Deshaun Womack, similar type situation. Let's not even talk about the 20 players from South Florida that came up. I'm sure that nobody had a heads up that he was going to take that job. Listen, this is all performative, disingenuous crap. And the sooner we get past it, the better off we're all going to be.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, Ole Miss was in, the crosshairs of Dabo Sweeney, where he's pulling out receipts of, agents. But what makes this whole thing interesting is what is tampering? Yeah, we all would say tampering is when you're trying to reach out to a kid on another roster. But what if you're actually not reaching out to the kid on the other roster? What if you're reaching out to the kid's family member who happens to be representing them, or the kid's agent who happens to be representing them, or the kid's high school coach who's involved with his representation? And, also in that interview that he had with media, I mean, he talked about we've got to identify what are the loopholes. And that's the big question in all of this. Are loopholes in talking to people close to the kid that's on another roster? Is that tampering? And so far, the answer to that is no.
It absolutely is no. I mean, for instance, if you are interested in a player whose father is a pastor at a church, maybe you flip him a little $250,000 to get him to come to your school. That was in the age before NIL. It was currently under investigation for about 10 years, but nothing came of it. Ole Miss, in this situation, nothing's going to come of it. It's all going to be performative crap that everybody has to deal with. But in the end of the day, is Clemson going to tell on Ole Miss? Well, they just did. Ole Miss, if they get in trouble, they're going to tell on LSU, because I can assure you what happened there. That would make the paint off the walls peel. Ole Miss was the most tampered with against program in the month of December in all of college football. Everybody was trying to get Trinidad Chambliss. Everybody was trying to get Kewan Lacey. Ole Miss did a fantastic job of retention, but that doesn't mean that tampering wasn't there. It's kind of like the weird story that broke out of Fresno State yesterday.
Which is not a state. Fresno is not a state.
No, it's not. It's not at all. To where they said that, hey, he's coming back to Fresno State, but Ole Miss contacted him and tampered him. And it's like, well, it sounds to me like every other situation that is in college football, and Fresno State did a good job of retaining that player. But like I said, Zach, this is all performative mess. And Alex Golesh, I'm sure he means the right thing, because he said, basically, if you listen to that quote, all of this is bad, but he never said he didn't do it. And that is something that we need to look at, and what really needs to be addressed in college football right now.
Yeah, but I mean, that also wasn't the question. He wasn't asked, did he tamper? He was asked his thoughts on tampering. So I don't think that's an entirely fair and pointed thing to say. I would also say that another part of that conversation, and I don't think it was this question, but it might have been the question asked about the Bediako stuff happening in Tuscaloosa, where he's like, yeah, look, it's human nature. And like, we coaches love to get up at the podium and just complain about the state of things are, or you can kind of learn what the rules are and kind of think, okay, like who is available for me to go and get, which is the right answer in this. Like, we all want our respective head football coach to know more about the current landscape of the sport so they have a better advantage, which leads to wins, which leads to getting more talent, which leads to just overall success. I mean, that's not a crazy take at all. And there are going to be programs that push the limits of this. And until, Golesh said in the same press conference, there's no like jurisdiction happening right now. And you're going to see people kind of push it more and more and more until something ultimately happens, Stephen.
I think the thing that ultimately has to happen is guardrails put in place by Congress. And I know that's probably going to take some time, but this is the NCAA's doing, because they let it go on for 5 years, kind of untouched. This lawlessness to where it built, where everybody just pushed the line a little bit further, to the point where when the NCAA decides to punish a singular school for doing what everybody else is doing, they are going to get hit with lawsuits. You're going to see mutual assured destruction play out. Like I said, tampering happens everywhere. You call it pre-portaling, you call it tampering, however you want to look at it, it's happening everywhere. Because if the coach right now does it.
For the sake of accuracy, is tampering only reaching out to the kid that's on another roster, or is it reaching out to someone associated with the kid on another roster?
I think it's the same thing. I do think that's the same
from
thing.
the rules. It's not the same thing. And so that's how it's defined, is like, if a head coach or a coach of another team directly interacts with that player, like, that's pretty clear cut. But with agents in the game now, with agents being in college football, it is that tampering, and we don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, the loophole has been put in place by the NCAA. It's one of those things to where this lawless society going on, and I think that you have to do something about it. I actually agree with what Dabo said in principle. You need to do something like that. There needs to be something concrete available. But the reality is, in the transfer portal window, while it was open, if you want to look at the Dabo Swinney thing, Luke Farrelly signed grant and aid papers. And anybody that has followed recruiting for the last 20 years realizes that does not lock the player into the institution. It only locks the institution into the player. And if that's the only thing that was signed, it's kind of hard for me to feel sorry, especially when the Darian Mensah thing just happened with Miami and Duke. And you had multiple 2 or 3 players for Ole Miss transferred out and got a buyout. They were already contracted and they just are going to get a buyout. I just don't think you can single out one school with what is going on absolutely everywhere. That's my opinion.
You brought up the South Florida guys coming with him. I think that's the easier sell of legitimacy, if I'm being honest with you. Bringing guys with him, bringing the entire, like, half of the coaching staff. Like, I don't know. We've seen that with other places. Like, we saw that with Eric Singleton going to Florida, like following his, receiver coach to Florida, like, and then former offensive coordinator when he's at Georgia Tech. Like, that's the same thing Auburn has done with, pretty much all of the UCF guys or USF guys that are coming with them. So I think that's the easier sell. But yeah, you calling them out for, Hedrick and Womack. I do think that's interesting how quick that happened, but also at that time, like, Ole Miss players had a different schedule than most players in college football because you guys won a few playoff games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I need to say right quick, I'm not mad at Golesh. I'm not mad at Auburn or anything like that. I don't think he did anything wrong. And none of that. That is my point, is the fact that everybody is trying to do the righteous indignation on Ole Miss over this situation when they would demand their coach to do the same thing for $8 million a year. That is my point right now.
Yeah.
And they're trying to basically just shoehorn an argument to try and get something fixed and use Ole Miss to do it. That's my point.
All right. Deuce Knight, former Auburn Tiger, now Ole Miss Rebel. That's going to be interesting. We jump into that in just a moment. Right here on this crossover edition of Locked on Auburn and Locked on Ole Miss. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Football season's almost over. It's almost over. You got one more time to get in on the action. My New England Patriots, a 4.5-point dog against the Seattle Seahawks. Can they pull off the upset? Steven, I'm just saying, every time a championship game, everybody points one direction. It doesn't typically go the way people want it to, or at least it's a lot closer than people want it to be. So I think 4.5 points with both of these defenses, I think it's a lot. What do you think?
Yeah. I think it would be interesting to see this game to say where, I don't know, you could imagine to where Seattle's on about the 4-yard line going into the end zone, and they have to decide whether handing it off to Kenneth Walker or throwing a pass.
Yeah, throw a slant, please.
Yeah, something like that. If only we could imagine what that would look like in professional.
Yeah, so thankfully we can. Malcolm, go. Incredible. If you're a new customer, just $5. Bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season's over. Last call for football on FanDuel, the official sports book partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you so much for making Locked on Auburn and Locked on Ole Miss your first listen every single day. For your second listen, please check out The Other Person's Show. We'd appreciate that. Or check out our buddy Chris Gordy of Locked on SEC for your second listen of the day. Deuce Knight going to Ole Miss. One of the worst kept secrets, it felt like, especially when the Trinidad stuff kind of heated up, where like, is he going to be able to come back or not or whatever? So, I guess the timeline for Deuce Knight and Ole Miss is the same that it would have been in most places. That was kind of the Auburn perspective of, okay, all these places that you guys are listing, Ole Miss, Notre Dame, like they have established guys. His timeline would be the same if he stayed at Auburn, but he chooses to return home to the state of Mississippi and to back up Trinidad Chambliss for one season before ultimately he'll get his chance.
Yeah, the funny thing is with Deuce Knight, we had the Florida football scout, Locked On's recruiting expert, Brian Smith, on. And this was back when Deuce was committed to Notre Dame and when everything was starting to heat up with Auburn. And we were having the conversation, and I was like, it doesn't matter which of these two he goes to. He's going to end up at Ole Miss. And I think we even had that conversation of what was going on. And it's really interesting to see. Now, the one advantage that Ole Miss has is nothing official is there for Trinidad Chambliss. If you made me bet right now, Trinidad Chambliss takes the first snap of the football season, but it's not official yet. So maybe that helped Ole Miss with the recruitment of Deuce Knight, where if things go sideways, he might slide into a starting position.
Yeah. The system that Golesh is bringing to Auburn certainly screams a fit for Deuce Knight. I think that was something that a lot of Auburn folks were excited and hopeful for. Obviously, that didn't happen, so they went to the portal, got 2 redshirt freshmen that'll be backups to Byron Brown, and we'll see if one of those guys take a step forward to be the guy after Byron Brown, or if Auburn has to go to the portal again this offseason. But regardless, like it's clear that Byron was going to be the guy. And so even going into last season, I did several shows, Steven, talking about how tricky the timing was going to be for Deuce Knight, because like there was a chance. I mean, this is when we were all kind of believing in Jackson Arnold. We're like, okay, if Jackson Arnold's great, he moves on and this isn't a thing. Or Jackson Arnold's terrible and he moves on, and then Deuce is the guy after that, which is what we would have thought would have happened if you showed us the record. And there's a sweet spot where like, okay, Jackson Arnold's okay, and then they have to make a decision. I said that I didn't think there was any chance that they would both be on the roster going into this season. Now, neither of them are on the roster. The Jackson Arnold one, I think, makes sense. The Deuce Knight one, I kind of wonder if they could negotiate that again, if they would change how they handled all of that, because it's been reported several places. Byron Brown was actively recruiting Deuce Knight to stay. I really think Byron Brown wanted Deuce to kind of, take him under his wing and kind of, mentor him and usher him into being the face of Auburn football the following season, regardless whether it was money, whether it was just wanting to be at Ole Miss or being back closer to home. I mean, there's a million reasons why a kid wants to transfer. Regardless, he's back at Ole Miss, or he's back in Mississippi at Ole Miss.
Yeah, which is, the irony of that is Auburn was actually closer to Deuce Knight than Oxford, Mississippi.
Oh, really? I don't think I realized that. Loosedale, is that where it's from?
Yeah, Loosedale's on the Gulf Coast.
Okay.
So it's a long way.
Okay.
But Deuce is a really interesting project, and Ole Miss fans look at it as if he can get a year to see how Trinidad Chambliss and his quick decision-making plays quarterback, Deuce Knight doing that exact same thing with the athletic ability that he has is a scary proposition. And for Ole Miss people that didn't watch Deuce Knight against Mercer, kind of talk about that game a little bit.
Yeah, dynamic, explosive, did it with his arm, did it with his legs. I mean, it was just big play after big play. The lopsidedness between Auburn and Mercer was pretty dramatic. So, I mean, it was the best case scenario for Deuce Knight for sure. The only other action we saw him was in a limited role against Ball State. They wanted to play him more, but Auburn's offense, as we know, was not great last year. And so they weren't up by enough to start the second half against Ball State. They wanted to give Deuce and some of the backups more. In fact, I think Hugh Freeze said the original plan was to bring Deuce in with the starters for a few drives in the second half. But like I said, they just weren't up enough. And with the backups, like, he didn't look good. He just didn't. But when you put him with the starters against Mercer, which Mercer is an okay team at their level of competition. So, take that for what it's worth. It was against Mercer. Massive talent differential. But I mean, you talk about with Trinidad, like the quick decision making, it did seem like Deuce made the decisions quickly. How watered down was the playbook and all that as far as what he needs to do? Like, I don't think we fully know, but explosive runs, long runs, and that's the upside that Deuce Knight brings.
Yeah, it should be really exciting to see what's happening. And when we talked about Ole Miss getting also a transfer commit from Jay Crawford in a crossover a little bit earlier on, but some players went the other direction as well. And I'm sure we're going to get into that in just a little bit.
Yes, that's next right here on this crossover edition of Locked on Auburn and Locked on. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Mazda. We love Mazda. This is Mazda's moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. Steven, give us a player that gets it done for Ole Miss, courtesy of our friends at Mazda.
Yeah, as Auburn fans probably noticed, it's going to be AJ Storr. He's kind of the bright spot of this season for Ole Miss that isn't quite going the way they thought it would. They moved into a sixth-man role. He's averaging about 18, 19 points a game in that role. So, yeah, he's showing out right now. Yeah,
and I'll go with Keyshawn Hall for the Auburn Tigers. He's been electric, including a 30-point performance the other night in Auburn's win over all these games run against each other. But oh my gosh, who did Auburn just beat? I am totally Texas. Goodness gracious. Which was huge. So Mazda, they put the same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Final few minutes on this crossover edition of Locked on Auburn and Locked on Ole Miss. I couldn't remember who we played. That was crazy.
Did you ever think that you would ever forget about Texas? And did you ever think that Texas would allow that to happen?
Man, if for some reason some Texas folks are watching, they are livid right now.
Seriously.
I feel like that's worse than a horns down, if I'm being honest with you.
I mean, the Arkansas and A&M and Oklahoma fans are probably enjoying this show like crazy, but the Texas fans, they're probably gathering up the rifles and pitchforks and all that to march on whatever location they think we're filming from.
All right. We haven't talked about this much on the air. Tell me about Deshaun Womack, the edge rusher, comes over from Ole Miss. Now he's an Auburn Tiger. What should Auburn fans expect? What's everything about this guy?
When you look at Deshaun Womack, Good player. Now, he was buried a little bit on the depth chart because of how talented the edge position is at Ole Miss. He was a 5-star out of high school. He went to LSU, didn't quite make it. He went to Ole Miss for a year, didn't quite make it, but he can get to the quarterback. And when he's on, he's really on. The ability, the twitchiness, it's all there. The hard part that you need to worry about is getting it out of him. He could disappear for stretches of a game.
Solid win rate, according to Pro Football Focus. Just had 2 sacks, but in limited playing time and the amount of pass rushing opportunities, not awful. He was just seemed to be buried. So that'll be interesting to see. And then the other guy appears to be just a depth piece, at least for 2026. I mean, I think Womack will have to play just based off of how thin Auburn is at edge/defensive end. But TJ Hedrick was a top 50 tackle. I think he was like the 49th tackle, according to 247, his year coming out. Didn't really play. What's the story with him?
Not a lot on him, because for people that don't know John Garrison of Ole Miss, if you are a freshman, if you are a young player, you typically do not get onto the field. You're going to learn the ropes and then eventually work your way toward him. I do think that they were excited about what he could be. But when you look at the tackle situation that Ole Miss has, and when you get Carius Kern brought in from LSU and other tackles brought in the portal, you can see how a young player would worry about players being recruited over them. I think his ceiling is fine. I think he's exactly what Ole Miss thought he was going to be, but playing time looked to be a little bit of an obstacle.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys you get in the portal that you just kind of used to backfill. I mean, Auburn's lost a lot of bodies just because of the natural coaching change. When you have a coaching change and you're not in the playoff, it's not an ideal situation when it comes to roster retention. So I do think that the addition makes sense. Him and Derek Plaz, a really similar situation. He sounds like he's in the same spot, but just coming from Miami, really solid players in front of him. And so we'll see if they can compete for a roster or a depth chart. Can they get the 2 deep as either sophomores or redshirt freshmen? We will see. Womack is it Womack or Womack?
Womack, I believe.
Womack. Okay. Just making sure. The DC at Alabama. Has me questioning that. So can he, if he had a larger sample size, can he be a 5 or 6 sack a season guy?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Like I said, when he cuts it on, he's a really good player. Whenever, I think it was Maryland he came out of originally in high school, he was a 5-star guy. He was a top 30 player in the entire country. And it just the light hasn't cut on for him just yet as far as the effort required to play ball at this level.
Yeah.
If that comes on, he's fine. He absolutely has the tools to do everything. It's just a matter of getting him to that point.
What is Ole Miss's perspective on when Auburn heads to Oxford this year? It's been too long since Auburn and Ole Miss have played each other. I really feel like the SEC missed a prime opportunity of not like doing anything during the freeze era, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and to have Lane Kiffin and Hugh Freeze, I was like, the next time we're going to have that.
I hate we never got that.
Yeah, and I'm happy that I'm going to have my crossover again. The crossover with Locked On Auburn. That's great stuff. Generally,
sure. Yeah,
I mean, who wouldn't want that? The stadium that Auburn fans remembered when they left Oxford, Mississippi for the last time is not the stadium they're going to be walking in this time. I will give Lane, I don't give him credit for much, but I'll give him credit for this. He turned that place into a difficult place to play. And against Georgia, against LSU, if it's a big game, a big atmosphere usually comes with it. And they're averaging about 68,000 fans in a stadium that's capacity
67.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The capacity's at 64. So they're really good. Their atmosphere is great. They have turned it into a difficult place to play, and they're a really talented team. So I would say that to Auburn fans, the stadium that they walked out of in, 2021 is not the same one they're going to be coming back into.
Yeah. I believe that. I mean, Ole Miss is a different program now.
Mm.
Going to the playoff changes who you are as a program, for sure. For sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be one of the situations where I've said this before. Like Auburn, it's so easy to compare as an Auburn fan. It's easy to compare yourself to, like, where are you compared to Bama and Georgia? But I've made the claim Auburn can have a successful season if Alex Golesh is the most successful first-year coach in the SEC. They host Florida. They play Arkansas. They play Ole Miss. They play LSU. Don't play Kentucky. But it's like, if you can take care of business compared to the other first-year coaches in the conference, you've got a shot. You've got a shot to do something special in your first year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, especially with the number. Like, I'm really interested to see what Kentucky looks like in year one under Will Stein. I'm real interested to see John Sumrall at Florida. Obviously, Lane at LSU is going to take up all the oxygen out there.
Yeah.
But, you know, Pete Golding just quietly is tied for third in SEC playoff appearances all time, as far as the number of games he's coached in, and he's coached in 3 games. So I think that Ole Miss should expect 9-3, 10-2 next season, especially when you have the best quarterback, the best running back, and the best kicker in college football. If you have the best season of first-year head coaches, yeah, that will be a success.
Yeah, right. I mean, even if you have the second best season among first-year head coaches, I think that potentially means 8 wins for Auburn. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what that looks like. We'll see what that looks like.
Just a Florida bowl game. That's all Auburn fans want, right? Just get back to a Florida bowl game. We'll worry about the playoffs next year.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe. We'll see. We'll see. I'm sure the off-season swell of excitement and hype will happen over time. So we'll see.
Absolutely. I love it.
Stephen, for all Auburn folks watching, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Hey, you can check me out at Locked On Ole Miss on YouTube. You can check out our All Access channel at lockedonolemmiss.supercast.com. We have Coach Corey Burton. We have Dalen Flowers. We have Mike Huseman talking about different aspects of that. That's exclusive content for All Access users. And we're also available wherever you get your podcast, on every social media platform. We like to have a good time, as a lot of Auburn fans know.
Yep. And if Ole Miss folks want more Auburn content, Locked On Auburn's available wherever you find Locked On Ole Miss. So there we go. Please like the video. Please subscribe to our channels, and we will see you next time. For Stephen Willis of Locked On Ole Miss, I'm Zach Blackerby of Locked On Auburn. This has been a crossover edition of Locked On Auburn, Locked On Ole Miss, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Free Trinidad.